I didn't confront my wife's affair. My silence took everything from her. Your hands still burn on my skin even after days apart. Last night, when you kissed the back of my neck, I felt alive again. Something I never feel at home. You make me remember I am a woman, not just a wife. Those were the first 4 lines of the letter I found. Not a letter to me, though it was in my wife's handwriting. And from that moment, my life was split into before I read it, and after. If you've ever stumbled across a secret that shattered everything you thought you knew, you'll understand why I have to tell this story. And before we go deeper, let me pause for a second. If this kind of story grips you the way it gripped me, please like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It helps me keep telling stories like this, and honestly, I'd love to hear if you would have done what I did next. At first, my eyes did that merciful human trick, blurring what would hurt too much to see clearly. I blinked hard, expecting my name to appear somewhere in the soft tilt of her handwriting. It didn't. The letters on the page kept their shape, cruelly perfect. The pen pressure was Laura's, firm on the downstrokes, a lift at the end of each sentence like a woman walking away with her chin raised. The voice was hers too, composed even when confessing a wildfire. But the you wasn't me. I'm David Carter, 52. I teach history at the high school where the trophy case is more dust than trophies, and the bell rings a few seconds late every period. I'm the kind of man who keeps spare change in a jar and a rag for the dashboard, because you never know when you'll need either. For 25 years, I believed my marriage to Laura was not the kind that required corralling. We were steady. We made lists. We did ordinary well. I found the box by accident. Our daughter, Emily, texted that she'd be home from college for the summer, and I decided to surprise her by fixing the soft spot in her old floor, the spot we joked about when she was little, the one that meowed like a cat when you stepped on it. I pulled up the board with my pry bar, and there it was. A cedar box, long as a shoebox and nearly as heavy. A satin ribbon was looped around it, frayed to threads at the corners. The color faded to something you'd call once blue. The cedar smell rose first, sap and memory, and then something sweeter, like lavender that had waited too long to be noticed. Dust floated in the afternoon light. For a moment, I pretended the box belonged to the house, like an old secret from the 1950s left by a family who hid ration coupons and dance cards. I pretended long enough to feel a flicker of curiosity, not yet weaponized by fear. The lid stuck, then surrendered with a sigh. Inside, folded papers stacked in neat bundles, ribbon again, a tiny gold paper clip at the top of each stack. My name was on none of them. The first page had no greeting, only breathless immediacy. Your hands still burn. I heard my own pulse in my ears, a clumsy drummer who'd lost the beat. I sat on Emily's rug. The floorboard I had removed leaned against the wall like a witness sworn to silence. The house hummed with its usual afternoon sounds, the refrigerator motor kicking in, a lawnmower 3 yards over, the dryer rolling one sock into the sleeve of a t-shirt. The ordinary kept going. That felt like an insult. I kept reading. You were late today. I thought I could be gracious about it. Wives are good at grace. But I am not your wife, and I was not gracious. When you finally came, the apology wasn't words. You set your hand at the base of my spine, and all the apology I needed rose through me like heat. I don't know how long I stared at the line, "I am not your wife." It was like a door that should have been locked, standing wide open. The rest of the paragraph tried to be poetry. It worked. Laura has always had a secret poet's mind. Even grocery lists from her read like little psalms: milk, bread, mercy. The precision was there on these pages, the same restraint, the same quiet lyric. Only the addressee had changed. Who are you? How did you earn this voice? What version of my wife did you unlock? Questions arrived in a slapstick rush, tripping over each other, reaching for a chair that wasn't there. I put the page down and reminded myself to breathe in a way that wouldn't sound like choking. The date in the corner, May 18th, 10 years ago. 10. Emily was in 5th grade. That spring we went to her recorder concert and laughed about the squeaks, then bought ice cream and pretended to understand the difference between Sprinkles and Jimmy's, because Laura grew up calling them one and I the other. That year, Laura took a job at the county office part-time, just to keep my brain from rusting, she'd said. She ironed her blouses on Sunday nights and whistled a tune I never learned the name of. I tried to put those memories back in their box. They refused. Next page. Different day. The writing was sharper, the ink a darker blue. When you touched my wrist today, just there, inside the pulse, I thought I might shatter from wanting. You didn't rush. You never do. You moved like you had promised the day extra hours, and it kept its word. When you kissed the place behind my ear, I remembered a girl I used to be before I became reliable. The images landed like stones in a pond, ripples of recognition, regret, anger, reliable. I could hear Laura saying it about herself, about me, about our life. Reliable is good for cars and paychecks. It's terrible for the kind of hunger Laura was writing about. I closed my eyes and saw the back of her neck the way I have seen it 1,000 domestic times. When I helped her with a necklace clasp, when I kissed her as she stirred pasta, when I failed to even brush the air near it because I believed, stupidly, there would always be another night. A truck rattled down the street and I startled like a man caught with something obscene. That shamed me. Shame is not the right feeling when you are holding evidence of someone else's trespass. I set the letters back in the box, then took them out again with the gentleness of a thief whose body remembered the ritual before his mind consented. The third letter mentioned a town I know too well. The motel off Route 7 with the cracked ice machine. We laugh at ourselves, grown people sneaking into a place where the curtains try and fail to keep out daylight. We did not hurry. Your hands were a patient language. I listened with my whole skin. I am sorry. No, I am not. I am only sorry there are not more hours in a day. I had driven past that motel my whole adult life without seeing it. The way you can drive past your own life and not see it either. I pictured the exact angle a car would park to be least visible from the road. I pictured a woman I knew better than any other woman crossing a lobby that smelled like old coffee. My heart did an ugly thing. Envy fused with humiliation until it became a metal I could taste. I put the letter down and stood up too fast. The room tilted, then steadied. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs like a schoolboy who wants the principal to think he's done nothing wrong. I went downstairs and ran the tap until the water kited cold across my fingers. On the fridge, our calendar hung with a magnet shaped like a smiling pear. I scanned the old squares from the year of that motel letter. Work travel for me. Late meetings for Laura. PTA bake sale. County budget night. Mom's birthday. The innocuous choreography of a family year. What had I missed? Everything. Back upstairs, the light had shifted from gold to the color the day gets when it decides to put itself away. I sat again. I read because you do not stop mid-fall. You either jump backwards, which is impossible, or you see what you land on. He told me a joke today about the Revolutionary War and I laughed too hard. He said I'm funnier when I'm afraid. Maybe I am. Afterward, we sat in his car, and I leaned my head against the glass to cool my face. He touched my knee, and everything in me was yes. History. Revolutionary War. A chill ran through me so clean it almost felt like relief. There are not many men in our town who salt their banter with battle dates. I am one of them. I took stock of my colleagues. Bill in science, irreverent. Nancy in English, every sentence a metaphor. Paul in math, allergic to small talk. The superintendent, all pleasantries. The county engineer, my neighbor's brother-in-law, fond of maps and jokes that require maps. My mind began making lists, because that's what it knows how to do when it cannot unknow something else. Another letter. The month had turned summer. He brought me cherries in a paper bag, the kind with the stems still on. We ate them in the park like teenagers, and my lips stained red. He kissed the stain away. I felt silly crying, and then I didn't feel silly at all. He said my name like it was a destination. I went. I had seen Laura spit cherry pits into the sink that summer. I had told her to be careful about the disposal blades. She had laughed and kissed my cheek absent-mindedly and asked if I could hand her the dish towel. The memory ricocheted against this new one and left an echo that made my jaw hurt. Downstairs, the back door creaked. For a breath, panic ran through me. The panic of a child with a contraband magazine, of a husband with proof. But it was only wind making itself large. I checked the time. Laura wouldn't be home for another hour. Tuesday nights, she volunteered at the library, reading aloud to children, a kindness she was born to. I pictured her there, bending her voice around the gentle edges of a sentence. I pictured those same lips framing a private language somewhere else. My stomach turned. The fifth letter I read was shorter. Sometimes I try to convince myself I can end this. I tell myself I am a good person, that good people choose desserts when they are already fed. Then you put your palm against the small of my back, and I remember I have been starving for years. I stood again, paced the room twice, then sat as if sitting were an obedience I could still manage. The small of her back. Ask any man who's loved a woman long enough. The geography of her back is a map you learn with devotion. I had spent decades believing I knew Laura's map better than anyone. The trespass felt holy in the worst way, like a stranger kneeling in your pew and claiming your pew had always been theirs. I don't know when I began to cry. The tears surprised me because I did not do the things that usually accompany crying. There was no sob, no salt taste at first, just the absolute, unarguable fact of water escaping. I wiped my face with the heel of my hand, almost offended that my body had elected to do something without my permission. Memories came not in order, but in a determined swarm. Laura pinning a corsage on Emily's prom dress. Laura asleep on the couch with a book tented on her chest. Laura in the backyard in spring, pressing dirt around a tomato seedling with a seriousness that made me love her anew. Laura's laugh the night the power went out and we ate cereal by flashlight. Laura's shoulder tightening when I touched her on a Tuesday 2 winters ago, and she said, "Not tonight, Dave. I'm just tired." Tired. The most honest and dishonest word in marriages. I folded the letters back into their ribbon. The ribbon, as if thrilled to be useful, held. The cedar box closed with a soft click that sounded like something ending without drama. I slid the box under the bed temporarily because I needed it close and because I couldn't imagine it far. The floorboard waited. I fitted it back and tapped the nails flush. It looked the same as it always had. That, somehow, was the most perverse comfort of the afternoon. How good the world is at appearing unchanged. I went to the bathroom and splashed my face. In the mirror, my eyes were older than they had been that morning. I tried on a handful of expressions. Disbelief, too theatrical. Anger, too loud for my house. Humor, cruel and brief. Composure, borrowed and ill-fitting. The one that stuck was a sort of carefulness. The look a man has when he is balancing something delicate and heavy and is aware he might drop it at any second. The front door opened at 6:30. "Dave?" Laura's voice carried its usual brightness, the kind of cheerfulness I'd stopped interrogating because the answer to, "How are you?" has a small acceptable range in polite households. She set her tote on the counter, and the library's rubber stamp thumped inside as if it had its own heartbeat. "In here," I said, and my voice sounded normal, which felt like an indecency. She stepped into the kitchen, cheeks lightly pink from the cold. She kissed my cheek in that practiced, affectionate way we have honed. "The kids were wild tonight," she said. "One little boy keeps asking if dragons can join the library. I told him yes, but only if they don't scorch the picture books." She laughed. It was a good laugh. If laughter can be honest and dishonest at once, hers was. "That's cute," I said, and poured her a glass of water because my hands needed something to do that looked like love. We made dinner together. Stir-fry improvisation, the two of us moving easily around each other, opening drawers by muscle memory, handing over the soy sauce before the other asked. This is what marriage mostly is, choreography. If you are lucky, the music is kind. I watched Laura push a strand of hair behind her ear. I could have sworn the gesture belonged to the woman in the letters and to the woman in my kitchen at the same time. We ate. We talked about Emily's exams and whether the gutters needed cleaning and my student who thought the Civil War was fought in the 1960s. Laura laughed again at that and said, "Well, in some ways, he's not wrong." She was radiant in the way women are when they have spent time doing something that makes them feel useful and alive. I hated that the thought came, who else makes you feel that? Hatred of oneself is a heavy cutlery in the drawer. You don't want to reach for it, but sometimes you do. After dinner, she went to shower. I waited until I heard the water run before I allowed my face to rearrange itself into something truer. The ceiling in the living room has a crack that looks like a river on a map. I followed it with my eyes and tried to remember the last day I had felt certain. Certainty is a luxury you don't know you're paying for until it's repossessed. When she came back in sweats, hair damp, smelling like the lavender the letters had somehow predicted, we watched a show we both pretend to like more than we do because it's nicer to share something medium than to split into our own rooms and excellent habits. She leaned into my shoulder. Habit, tenderness, or both? Who could say? I let her weight rest there and thought about the sentence. I am not your wife and I was not gracious. I tried to imagine Laura writing it. I tried not to. That night in bed, Laura turned away gently, her usual side sleep curl. I lay on my back and listened to the tick of the hall clock. The box under the floor upstairs might as well have been on my chest. I could feel the shape of it. I could feel the shape of myself, the before me and the after me, auditioning for the role of who I'd be in the morning. I made 3 private promises in the dark. First, I would not accuse her until I knew the whole of what I was accusing. I am a history teacher. Evidence is the difference between a story and a rumor you ruin lives with. Second, I would notice. I had spent years not noticing small hurts because they were inconvenient to the life we had agreed to. I would notice now. I would let noticing hurt. Third, and this one arrived like a stranger who knew my name, I would not be the only keeper of this secret. There is always someone else in the story of a betrayal, the other point of the triangle, the other casualty. If I could find the shadow my wife had been writing to, I might find the light that exposes all of this. Or if not him, then someone who knew him. Someone who could translate this language I had been forced to learn in a single afternoon. Laura's breathing slid into sleep. The room was a soft darkness, the kind that would have comforted me any other night. I lay there counting, as if numbers could arrange the world back into something manageable. 5 letters read, 10 years of time, 25 years married, 1 box, 1 man who had touched the back of my wife's neck as if he had discovered a new country there. I did not sleep much. When I did, I dreamed of cherries and a motel ice machine and a ribbon that would not break no matter how hard I pulled. Morning would ask for coffee and keys and kindness and decisions. Morning would not care that a house can become a museum of lies without changing the paint. But before morning, there was the vow sitting with me like a companion in the dark. I will learn what I am inside this, and then I will decide what to do with that knowledge. The morning after I found the letters, everything in the house felt the same. Coffee brewing, the dog stretching, Laura humming in the kitchen, yet different. Like I was watching life through a cracked mirror. Laura smiled at me as she poured milk into her cereal. That smile, once my anchor, now looked like a mask. I caught myself staring, not at her eyes, but at her hands. Those hands that had written words so intimate they could set skin on fire. I wanted to ask, whose back did you touch? Whose lips did you kiss? Instead, I asked if we needed more milk. All day at school, I couldn't focus. My students droned about the Civil War, and every mention of a date or a soldier reminded me of that line. He told me a joke about the Revolutionary War. My stomach twisted. Was he someone I knew? A colleague? A friend? That night, I went back to Emily's old room. I lifted the floorboard again. The cedar box waited like it had been breathing under there, patient and smug. I read more letters. You undid the buttons so slowly I thought I would faint. Every touch was deliberate, every pause a kind of torture. I wanted to scream, but instead I whispered your name. You make me feel wild and young and dangerous. My chest clenched. She had never described me that way. Not once. In 25 years, I read another. We should stop. We say that every time. But then your hands find mine, and I don't remember why good women stop at all. Maybe I'm not good. Maybe I don't want to be. Her words weren't just confession. They were celebration. She wasn't merely straying. She was alive with him. I closed the letter, but the images wouldn't leave. Laura, flushed with color, laughing like she used to when we were young. Except she wasn't laughing with me. For days, I lived two lives. In one, I was the husband, mowing the lawn, paying the bills, asking about Emily's classes. In the other, I was the detective, replaying her words, searching for clues, imagining the shadow of a man who had touched what I thought belonged to me alone. And slowly, dangerously, I began to want more than answers. I wanted him ruined. Nights grew longer. I found myself memorizing her schedule, library nights, volunteer shifts, errands that lasted longer than they should. Each time she stepped out, I wondered, is she writing to him? Seeing him? I checked her drawers, her purses, her phone when she left it charging. Nothing. She was too careful. Or maybe the affair had ended years ago, and the letters were all that remained. But why keep them? Why hide them with such care if they meant nothing? The not knowing was its own form of poison. One evening, while she folded laundry, I studied her face. The lines near her eyes, the softness of her mouth. I wondered how he had kissed her there. Whether he had memorized those same features the way I had. I almost asked, I almost begged, tell me the truth. But I swallowed the words. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was a puzzle. And puzzles demand patience. And I was a patient man. The more I read, the less I recognized the woman I had married. Page after page, Laura poured herself into this man like a river too wild for its banks. You asked me today if I would ever leave him. I told you no. He is stability. He is my roof, my anchor. But you are my storm, my fire, my reason to breathe. Do you hate me for it? Or does it thrill you, knowing I can't survive without you? I had to put the letter down. My hands shook so hard the paper nearly tore. Stability, roof, anchor. That's what I was to her. Not love, not passion, just walls around her secret. I stared at the family photos on the shelf. Laura in her garden hat, Emily with braces, me holding the dog. A picture of a happy family, a house built on a foundation of lies. I thought of the nights she turned her back to me, claiming exhaustion. The way she'd sometimes sigh when I kissed her like I was an obligation. How many of those nights had she been thinking of him? A letter dated 11 years ago stopped me cold. The Highway Motel was loud tonight. A wedding party next door. But when you pressed me against the thin wall, the noise vanished. Every second was dangerous, delicious. We laughed afterward, promising it was the last time. We've said that so many times, haven't we? I felt sick. Emily would have been 10 then. I remembered tucking her into bed, reading her stories while Laura claimed she was helping a friend from church. My God, she had been in that motel. I gripped the paper until my knuckles whitened. Memory and truth collided, reshaping every year of my life. If you've ever had a memory suddenly twist into something darker, you know the feeling. It's like your own past turns against you. And if you're still with me now, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because the real secret in these letters hadn't even revealed itself yet. Then came a letter that made my breath stop. I dreamed of you last night, though dreams are cruel, because when I woke, you were gone. When they called me about the accident, I thought it was a lie. How could the world just take you like that? And now I lie beside a man who will never know he's only half a husband. My body here, my heart buried with you. Richard. His name finally appeared, scratched in the margin, and with it, a truth more complicated than I imagined. He was dead. Laura's secret lover had been gone for years. The letters shifted after that. Less heat, more sorrow. She wrote of aching silence, of pretending, of the cruel joke of surviving in a marriage that felt like a stage play. I will never leave him, she confessed in one, but he will never know who I truly was. I pressed the pages to my chest, trembling. For so long I had imagined confronting him, despising him. But the man was gone. And the only one left with answers was sitting across from me at the dinner table each night, pouring me tea with steady hands. I realized then, I wasn't competing with another man. I was competing with a ghost, and no one wins against a ghost. The day I read Richard's death in her letter, something in me shifted. The rage didn't fade, it hardened. Laura thought she had buried her secret with him. She thought those words, hidden beneath floorboards, would never see daylight. But I had them now. Her confessions, her desires, her betrayals, they were mine, and I wasn't going to waste them. At dinner, she asked if I wanted more potatoes. Her voice was soft, steady. I nodded, keeping my eyes on my plate. I had spent 25 years being steady, predictable, safe. Now, I would use that mask against her. In the evenings, I scanned the letters. Every page became a digital file, a silent testimony to what she had done. I met with a lawyer under the guise of work meetings. He told me what I already suspected. Infidelity, even if buried in the past, could tilt the scales, especially with proof. I began moving money. Quietly, carefully. Accounts shifted. Investments consolidated under my name. A new trust created for Emily, untouchable by her mother. And still, I kissed Laura's cheek goodnight. I let her believe life was normal. There was a strange power in the silence. Every time she laughed at one of my jokes, I thought of her laugh in that motel room. Every time she brushed my sleeve at the sink, I remembered the letter about his fingers tracing her wrist. The difference was, now she didn't know that I knew. She had lived a double life once. Now it was my turn. One night, I placed the cedar box back on the coffee table. No floorboard, no hiding, just sitting there, waiting. When Laura walked in and saw it, the blood drained from her face. She froze, as if she'd seen a ghost. Her eyes darted to me, then to the box, then back. "David, where?" I didn't answer. I let the silence burn. She opened the lid with trembling hands, leafed through the pages she had once written in a fever, a frenzy. Each word now a weapon. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "You weren't supposed to—" "No," I said, my voice steady, sharp. "I wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to stay blind. I was supposed to be your roof, your anchor, the man you slept beside but never touched with your heart. But now—" I leaned closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. "Now you will leave this house with nothing but these letters." She sobbed. She begged. But I had already decided. It wasn't the shouting match she expected. No broken plates, no slammed doors, just a quiet dismantling of the world she thought she controlled. Because betrayal, I realized, didn't deserve noise. It deserved precision. The divorce papers were signed in a quiet office with beige walls and stale coffee. Laura didn't look at me. She couldn't. Her hands trembled as she signed her name again and again, sealing her fate with each stroke of the pen. She had fought, of course. She tried to say the letters were old, meaningless, a past mistake buried long ago. But the words betrayed her. Her words, the passion, the confessions, the promises of forever to a man who wasn't me. Each line carved her credibility to pieces. When the gavel came down, it was final. The house, the accounts, the life we'd built, all mine. What she had left were memories, ashes of a fire she thought would never be uncovered. The day she moved out, she didn't meet my eyes. She left with 2 suitcases and a face hollowed out by shame. Emily stood in the doorway, confused, asking too many questions I couldn't yet answer. I told her only this: "Your mother made choices. Now I'm making mine." That night, I sat in the silence of the house. For the first time, it was truly mine. No ghosts under the floorboards, no secrets breathing in the walls, just me, and the knowledge that betrayal had been answered, not with violence, but with precision. But the story didn't end there. Weeks later, at a neighborhood gathering, I met Evelyn, the widow who lived 3 streets over. She carried her grief like a fragile glass, careful not to spill it. When she laughed at something I said, it wasn't the practiced laugh of Laura's letters. It was real, raw. We began to talk, then to walk, then to share dinners that stretched late into the night. She told me about her late husband, about the lies she discovered too late. I told her about the letters, about the silence, about the ghost of Richard. 2 broken hearts, stitched together by the same needle of betrayal. And slowly, cautiously, something grew between us. Not fire, not storm, but warmth. A flame steady enough to light the dark. Epilogue. Sometimes I wonder what Laura thinks when she lies awake at night, clutching the sheets in a small apartment she never wanted. Maybe she remembers the man she loved in secret. Maybe she hates me for taking everything. But I don't wonder for long. Because Evelyn's hand finds mine in the dark, and for the first time in years, I sleep without ghosts. Betrayal didn't destroy me. It remade me. And that's how it all ended. But let me ask you, if you found letters like these, would you confront? Or would you stay silent and let revenge do the work for you? Share your thoughts below, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next story I have to tell is even more shocking.